Hello and welcome, friends, to Chapter 2, The Genesis of Ethnic Strife. Before we begin, let's do a quick recap of Chapter 1. We explored the land and the people of Sri Lanka, its geography, climate, history, and demography. We saw how culture, politics, and identity shaped the island into a mosaic, beautiful but divided. Those very divisions are what fuel the conflict we are about to study now. A big thank you to all of you who have already subscribed and received the soft copy of our notes. And for those who haven't, don't delay. Call on the number given and start your preparation today. We assure you, these notes are specially curated for DSSC 2026. Everything is simplified, structured, and exam ready. So much so that once you have these notes, you won't even need to open the book again. All you'll need to do is revise and revise. So, without wasting time, let's begin today's journey into the genesis of ethnic strife, the roots of a conflict that would shape Sri Lanka and draw India into one of its toughest military missions. As Tamil grievances grew, some real, some perceived, their leaders first turned to politics, not guns. In 1976, different Tamil parties came together under one banner, the Tamil United Liberation Front, or TULF. For the first time, Tamil spoke with a single political voice. The gamble paid off. In the 1977 elections, the TULF campaigned openly on the idea of secession, demanding a separate Tamil homeland. The result shocked many. TULF won 18 out of 24 Tamil seats, making it the main opposition party in parliament. For a moment, it looked like politics could work. That maybe, through parliament, Tamil demands would finally be heard. But every step forward was blocked. Reform stalled. Sinhala parties, the UNP and SLFP, kept playing short-term electoral games, using anti-Tamil rhetoric to win votes while avoiding real solutions. Politics had promised justice, but delivered little. And when the doors of democracy shut, another door opened, the path of militancy and violence. In Jaffna, 1972, a teenager named Velupillai Prabhakaran gathered a handful of followers and formed the Tamil New Tigers, or TNT. 4 years later, in 1976, it would take a new name that the world would never forget, the Liberation Tigers of Tamil-Eelam, or LTTE. At first, their actions were small but brutal. Assassinations of police and informers, bank robberies to raise funds, and taxation, extorting money in the name of the cause. The government tried to stamp it out, even banning the LTTE in 1978. But instead of fading, the movement only grew more determined, more violent. Then came the turning point. On 31st July 1983, the LTTE ambushed an army patrol at Tirunelveli, killing 13 Sinhala soldiers. The response was catastrophic. Across Sri Lanka, mobs unleashed fury on Tamils. Over 3,000 people were killed, homes and shops were burned to the ground, and 150,000 Tamils were pushed into camps. Many more fled across the sea, into India. This was no longer just insurgency. This was a civil war, born in fire and blood. As violence raged, waves of Tamil refugees poured into Tamil Nadu. Public pressure mounted on New Delhi. India could no longer remain a spectator. Behind the scenes, Indian intelligence agencies, the RAW and IB, not the army, began training Tamil militant groups on Indian soil, while supplying them with weapons and material support. But this strategy backfired. The LTTE resented India's backing of rival Tamil groups. To them, it looked like divide and rule. In May 1986, the LTTE struck back, crushing its main rival, the Tamil-Eelam Liberation Organization, or TELO. Overnight, the Tigers emerged as the undisputed power in Jaffna. With Sri Lankan government forces confined to coastal bases, the LTTE began running a parallel administration in the north, their own police, their own courts, their own taxes. By the mid-1980s, the LTTE was no longer just a militant group. It was becoming a state within a state. The LTTE was not just fighting in Sri Lanka, it was building a global network. From Tamils living overseas, the Tigers tapped a steady flow of diaspora money. Later accounts even allege that drug proceeds were funneled into the COIs. With this cash, weapons were bought on the open market, especially in Singapore, where arms deals could be arranged through shadowy middlemen. The LTTE also looked beyond Asia, seeking help from groups and governments hostile to the West, the PLO, Iran, even Libya. When Sri Lankan forces later captured LTTE correspondence, the letters revealed just how far the Tigers had reached. This was no longer a local rebellion. It was a movement that had professionalized beyond Sri Lanka's shores. On 26 May 1987, the Sri Lankan army launched its biggest offensive yet, Operation Liberation, aimed at retaking the Jaffna Peninsula. Artillery thundered, and airstrikes hammered LTTE positions, especially around Point Pedro at the tip of Jaffna. At the same time, an economic blockade choked the region. Power went dark, water ran short, medicines vanished, and shelves stood empty. But despite the firepower, the campaign faltered. The army had too few troops, supply lines inland were unsafe, and they relied heavily on coastal resupply. The LTTE fought back fiercely, and the blockade inflicted terrible suffering on civilians. The offensive slowed, then stalled. The war dragged on, and with every passing day, public misery deepened. What made the LTTE such a fearsome force? First, its totalizing ideology, the dream of Tamil-Eelam as the only goal. Every fighter carried a cyanide capsule, ready to die rather than be captured. They chose the bullet over the ballot, enforcing Spartan discipline and handing out ruthless punishment to anyone who dared dissent. By the mid-1980s, their strength hovered around 4,000 cadre, including nearly 500 women armed with some 2,000 weapons, rifles, machine guns, and mortars. The Tigers were structured like an army. They had 5 regional commands: Jaffna, Vavonia, Trincomalee, Batticaloa, and Mannar, each with military and political wings, subsectors, and radio communications through walkie-talkies. Training was tough. 3 months of relentless drills, fitness, weapons, fieldcraft, and signals. By the end, recruits were hardened guerrillas. And the LTTE innovated. They manufactured their own grenades, claymores, and mortars, even experimenting with light aircraft and a homemade glider. This was no ragtag insurgency. The LTTE had transformed into a disciplined, deadly war machine. As Colombo turned abroad for help, seeking military instructors from Pakistan, Israel, even the UK, alarm bells rang in Delhi. For India, the danger was clear. If outside powers gained a foothold, especially at Trincomalee Harbour, it would threaten India's own backyard. Then came the breaking point. A humanitarian flotilla carrying food and medicines from India was blocked by the Sri Lankan Navy and forced to turn back. India responded with a bold move. On 4 June 1987, the Indian Air Force swept over Jaffna, dropping aid packages from the sky. For Tamils on the ground, it was relief. For Colombo, it was a humiliation. Sri Lanka protested fiercely, but internationally, there was little pushback. The message was unmistakable. India was ready to act. The stage was set, not just for relief, but for a political reset. On 29 July 1987, India and Sri Lanka signed the Indo-Sri Lanka Accord, greeted at first with applause across the world. But why did Colombo finally agree? Because by mid-1987, it was clear a military victory was out of reach. The government also feared international censure for human rights abuses. While the economy was sinking, tourism had dried up, tea exports were falling, and debt was mounting. The accord promised a reset. It aimed to keep Sri Lanka united, protect India's security interests, revive the island's economy, and safeguard the rights of all communities. The terms were ambitious. a ceasefire within 24 hours. Sri Lankan forces pulled back to prime positions. Militant disarmament within 72 hours. An interim administrative council for the Northeast. Elections in 3 months. A referendum on merging the East with the North. And, most crucially, devolution of powers. On paper, it looked like a blueprint for peace. In reality, it would test both governments and the IPKF in ways no one had imagined. The very next morning, 30th July 1987, the induction of the Indian peacekeeping force began. Ships docked, aircraft landed, and soldiers stepped onto foreign soil, tasked with turning an accord into reality. But even on day one, there was a jolt. At the Colombo ceremony, a naval guard struck the visiting Indian Prime Minister, a shocking breach of protocol that foreshadowed the turbulence ahead. For the IPKF, peacekeeping would soon collide with politics, mistrust, and guns. And in our next chapter, we'll see how the plan turned into deployment, and how the first hopes of peace began to soar. So friends, here we come to the end of chapter 2. The journey of the LTTE's rise, India's involvement, and the signing of the Indo-Sri Lanka Accord has set the stage for what comes next. But remember, for you, the real journey is DSSC 2026. Start your preparation early. Don't wait for the last moment. The sooner you begin, the stronger your grip will be on every chapter. Book your notes now. They're curated specially for DSSC 2026, so that all you need to do is revise, revise, and revise. Thank you for watching. Please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to this channel. Your support keeps us going, and together, we'll make DSSC 2026 a success story.